The sun was sinking low over the endless stretch of the Arizona desert, painting the land in gold and crimson. Dust rose in gentle swirls as a lone rider made his way through the dry canyon trail. His name was Ethan Cole, a former Union soldier turned drifter, a man running from memories that still echoed like gunfire in his head. His eyes were sharp, his jaw set firm, and his heart, though he didn't know it yet, was about to be tested in ways he'd never imagined. Ethan had been riding for hours without a drop of water left in his canteen. The land was merciless, dotted with twisted mesquite trees and cacti standing like sentinels of stone. He was heading towards Silver Creek, a small town rumored to be hiring ranch hands. But fate had other plans that evening. As he reached the edge of a rocky ravine, something caught his eye, a flicker of movement, faint but unmistakable. He stopped his horse and dismounted, crouching low, his hand resting on the worn grip of his revolver. The desert was quiet, save for the whine of the wind and the caw of a distant crow. Then he saw her. Lying among the red rocks was a young woman, an Apache girl, barely conscious. Her arm bleeding from a deep cut and her ankle twisted beneath her. Her long black hair was tangled with dust and blood, and the once beaded dress she wore was torn from a struggle. Ethan's instincts told him to walk away. Trouble had a way of finding men like him, and helping a wounded. Apache in this territory could bring him the kind of trouble he didn't need. But when she opened her eyes, dark, fearful, and filled with pain, he couldn't turn away. "Easy," he murmured, lowering his weapon and kneeling beside her. "You're hurt." The girl tried to speak, but could only whisper something in her native tongue. Ethan looked around. No one else was nearby. He tore a strip from his shirt and pressed it against her wound to stop the bleeding. She flinched at first, but then relaxed as she realized he meant no harm. "Hold on," he said softly. "You'll be all right." He carried her to his horse and set her carefully across the saddle. The nearest water source was an old cabin he'd passed a few miles back, abandoned, but still standing. The sun dipped below the horizon as he reached the cabin, the desert turning cold under the twilight sky. Inside, he lit a small fire, cleaned her wound with water from his canteen, and wrapped it with a bandage. She watched him closely, wary but too weak to resist. Ethan offered her a piece of dried meat and some water. She hesitated before taking it. After a few minutes, she whispered in broken English, "You help me, why?" Ethan shrugged, looking into the flames. "Because you needed it." She studied him in silence. Her name, he learned, was Nita, which meant bear in her language. She had been attacked by a group of outlaws while gathering herbs for her people. Her tribe was camped somewhere in the North Hills, and she had barely escaped alive. Ethan nodded as she spoke, his jaw tightening. "Those men, what did they look like?" She described them, rough riders with red bandanas and scarred faces. Ethan recognized the type, mercenaries who preyed on travelers, stealing from anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "I'll get you back to your people." The night deepened, stars blazing across the sky. Ethan leaned back against the wall, fighting sleep. Nita lay wrapped in his blanket, her breathing steady now. For the first time in a long while, he felt a strange calm wash over him, a sense of purpose he hadn't known since the war ended. But dawn brought danger. Ethan was awakened by the distant thundering of hooves. He stepped outside and saw a group of riders approaching fast. They were Apaches, warriors painted for battle, bows drawn and spears raised. He raised his hands, knowing how this must look, a white man alone in the desert, standing over a wounded Apache girl. Nita stirred and called out weakly in her language. The warriors slowed their charge and dismounted, surrounding Ethan with suspicion burning in their eyes. Their leader, a tall man with feathers woven into his hair, stepped forward. "She is my daughter," the chief said in English, his voice low and dangerous. "Or what have you done to her?" "I found her hurt," Ethan replied evenly. "Bandits attacked her." "I only helped." The chief looked at his daughter, who nodded faintly. Still, the warriors remained tense, their eyes never leaving Ethan's face. After a moment, the chief spoke again. "You saved her life," he said. "Among our people, that means something." Ethan didn't understand what he meant until later. The warriors helped Nita onto her horse, and the chief motioned for Ethan to follow. They rode north, deep into Apache territory, where the desert gave way to pine-covered hills and hidden valleys. Ethan knew few white men had ever seen this land and lived to tell about it. They entered a large camp, smoke rising from fires and the sound of drums echoing softly. Ethan was led before the chief's lodge, where elders gathered around. Nita was carried inside, and Ethan waited, surrounded by watchful eyes. After some time, the chief emerged. "You are called Ethan Cole," he said. "My daughter has told us how you saved her. Among our tribe, such an act binds 2 lives. You are now her protector, her husband." Ethan froze. "Her husband?" The warriors nodded solemnly. There was no room for refusal in their eyes. "I think there's been a mistake," he began, but Nita stepped forward. Her face was calm, her eyes full of quiet strength. "No mistake," she said. "Our law is old. You saved me. The spirits joined our paths." Ethan looked around, realizing that arguing would mean disrespect and possibly death. He took a slow breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. This was not what he had planned when he rode into the desert that morning. As the tribe cheered softly, Nita approached him and whispered, "Do not fear. I will help you understand our ways." And for the first time since his war-torn past, Ethan felt the strange pull of destiny. He had entered the desert a loner, a man without purpose. But now, under the endless western sky, he was bound by fate to a proud people, a wounded girl, and a love story written in the dust of the Wild West.